What's up, Jimmy? We're hitting live. We're gonna do it live.
What's going on? What's going on?
Not much, man. Hey, thanks a lot for joining me, bud. I love talking to you. So, thanks for joining me on my first few podcasts, actually. So thanks for being a pioneer here on the Full Monty.
Nice, nice.
So, Jimmy, man, listen, I know that we've been talking for the last couple years now, and I know that you know I know what you do in real estate, right? But you don't consider yourself just an investor, right? Tell me a little bit about what you do in real estate here.
Nah, yeah, I definitely don't consider myself a real estate investor. I like to think about myself more as a marketer,
Okay,
um, uh, direct to seller acquisitions company.
okay,
And then I like to think about that as the entry strategy, how to find deals, and then the exit strategy. I'm very flexible on.
right,
So I'm cool with wholesaling if need be, or fix and flipping, or doing a short term rental, long term rental. Now
okay,
I'm getting into co living and past split. So I don't discriminate on the exit strategy of it.
right.
And if I had to say like what do you focus on, is just finding deals direct to seller. That's kind of like my thing. What do I
Right.
do with the deals? That can vary.
So you're a creative exit strategist is what you consider yourself.
That might be the term. That
An
might be the term.
acquisition specialist and exit strategist. Oh, that's the new term for you. But so for those that don't know what wholesaling is, um, tell us, Jimmy, why do you concentrate on wholesaling? Because you're not a real estate agent, right? Like when
Right.
we associate people to real estate, a lot of my viewers, go to real estate agent, right? You don't do real traditional real estate, right?
Right. I don't at all. And honestly, I don't really do wholesaling that much anymore. We'll wholesale land, maybe stuff that we don't really care for. But the way that we started exploring all these different exit strategies is we were trying to figure out finding the deal is always the hardest part. Seems like
Okay.
the rest of it is kind of like, as long as you have the right processes, you could kind of do fix and flip or whatever the thing is that you want to do. But all the other strategies kind of just came about on one single mindset of how can we, one, make as much money as possible, and two, from the start of our company, our main goal has always been to grow our portfolio. So our number
Your
one
your
thing,
personal portfolio.
yes, yes, so we always look at things at how can I keep the deal.
Right.
um and fix and flip is not necessarily doesn't meet that criteria, but it meets the other one of how can we make more money. Because if
Okay.
I found a deal and then I wholesale it to a fixed flipper, there's obviously a margin that they're making on top of whatever I made as a wholesaler. So my idea was, why don't we just keep all of it? So that's the reason. But wholesaling is basically just finding a deal and putting it under contract, and you are then selling your rights to that contract, what they call your interest to that contract, the opportunity for somebody to step into your shoes and buy the great deal that you were able to find and negotiate.
Right.
So that's the difference, I would say, between a wholesaler and a real estate agent. A real estate agent is trying to maximize their client's position,
Right.
where I am my own client in a wholesale transaction. I have negotiated a deal with another party. And once I got the best deal possible, I am the client and I am selling my asset, my interest. I am not representing the seller in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
They are representing themselves in the same transaction. So that's how I would differentiate it. I don't think it's the same at all.
No,
To yeah,
absolutely. You're literally looking for your own portfolio. Why would you overpay for something that you're going to
exactly.
put in your own portfolio? So you're out there. You consider yourself a marketer first because you're going direct to seller. You have to know how to advertise to your clientele, to your niche market. You have to learn how to communicate through marketing. and that so you basically then you identify the deal, you put it under contract, and then you decide what to do with it. But let's touch on that marketing, because you actually have experience with marketing. You transitioned from the marketing side of business, corporate business, right?
Yeah. No, that's correct. Before I got into real estate, I owned my own marketing agency on the name of Design with Pixels. I exited that, and when I say exited, I mean loosely. I didn't sell it, and I just downsized it, and I started firing clients. I still have actually one client left that I still work with, and we have a great partnership. That probably the only good client that I've had over the many years. That is just not only good as far as working with them, but the structure and the terms of our relationship.
It sounds
Um,
like you should have exited that business a long time ago.
Maybe. Honestly, the more that I learn about real estate, the more that I realize a bunch of mistakes that I made on that decade. Um, I was young. I started into the online marketing world when I was 18. So I didn't know anything about anything. And looking back, it's 2020, but I think a bit was just not being more selective about the clients that we were working with,
Right.
which then leads to a bunch of headaches down the road, which is why I really transitioned from that industry, is because I was just burnt out and I was just over dealing with clients. I kept accepting clients unconsciously. I didn't know about this, but I kept accepting clients that weren't really good business owners. They
Right.
weren't good entrepreneurs, meaning it didn't matter how much I would crush it for them. If I generate a bunch of leads for them and they're not picking up the phone and answering and talking to the lead,
They're
or
gonna
they don't
blame
know,
you though. They're
they're
gonna
gonna
blame you
blame me.
because the leads are no good.
Exactly. So as a marketer, you're actually like, if you crush it for them, they might cancel because, hey, you gave us way too much business
Right.
and we don't know how to grow to keep up with it. So if I crush it, or if they suck as a business owner and they can't keep up with the demand, not on growth levels, but just like you said, right? Like the leads are no good and whatever. Like people aren't just throwing money at me. What do you mean these leads are good? Like, like they don't know what closing is, sales, and just having a good customer service and a good product. So there's a lot of ways to fail, which is why I think the bigger companies in marketing tend to only deal with Fortune 500 type
Yeah.
of clients. They don't really deal with the local plumbers and the local this, because those people aren't really.
You know, your story of how you got into real estate kind of reminds me of how I got real estate sales, because initially in the heyday of real estate, everybody had a real estate license and was doing business. But when the bucket fell, the bottom fell out of the bucket in 2007, people were going out of business and everything else. We opened up a real estate company to hire those people that were coming to the office, and
Mm,
they didn't have a place to hang their license locally. So I opened up the real estate company and started hiring just about anybody that I could. And, I was feeding them leads, and
mm,
they were always complaining, right? They were always complaining.
yeah,
I'm like, I'm feeding you leads. I'm trying to get business to you in your hands, and you're not even calling people back, right? So
yeah,
then I was like, look, let me show you how it's done. And I was like, well, why am I giving, I'm just going to do it myself instead of doing it for other people,
yeah.
right? So I started the same thing. I started doing real estate because I got tired of doing it for other people. I was doing it for myself then, right?
Mm,
So yeah, it's funny. You start doing stuff for other people, you get tired of their nonsense. You're like, you know what? I'll just take it. I'll just make sure that I take advantage of all the opportunities. Right.
100%, 100%. That's why I transitioned out, because I wanted to take a. I basically was, after I left that, I was in search for a new opportunity where I could basically start my own business.
Right.
And when I say that, it sounds funny because Design with Pictures was a business, but it wasn't a business that I felt like I was in control from A to Z.
Right.
I was always at the mercy of that client, customer, on how they're handling their business. And the success of their business was basically what was limiting my business. So I was like, I need to go into my own business where I could control A to Z. And that was definitely why I ended up kind of pivoting.
So Jimmy, with your experience with digital marketing, right? How have you been able to incorporate that side of your business into the real estate now? Like, how has that fit?
That's such a funny question because I haven't.
Really, really,
I obviously have some technical skills that I've been able to carry it over and translate,
right,
but the marketing in real estate is very different than traditional marketing. Um, a lot of it is basically what we call outbound,
right,
direct to the person. And honestly, is because we have things that other people don't necessarily have. So, for example, we're able to get data of people that are in pre-foreclosure, let's call it, and we know how to purposely and be very purposeful with our time and energy and money, so we could just call them directly.
right,
Where if you're a plumber, like you don't know who's the person that needs plumbing, so your marketing strategy needs to be different. So
right. If you're a plumber, you can't just pull a list of people with clogged toilets, right?
right, right. So we're very lucky in that aspect that we can pull data, we call it in the industry, for the types of potential leads and customers that might be able to sell us the real estate at an underpriced value
Right,
because they have some kind of what we call distress, right? They have some kind of issue. So since that's how the industry operates, I never really fully tapped into all the marketing strategies and skills that I have as far as SEO. And not that it doesn't work for real estate, but I also know how much it costs and what it takes.
yeah. From everybody that I hear that is in the SEO space for real estate investing, even traditional real estate space, the cost
Yeah,
per click is so high, and you really have to put in a lot of money into it to get the leads. And the people with the most success cover wide areas of the country so that they can bring their cost per click down. And it's unfair for like me and you that for all intents and purposes our markets are small, right? Like I work in the Florida market, and when you compare the Florida market to somebody who can you know advertise in 50 states and do business in 50 states, their cost per click is going to go way down, right? So it's hard for us to compete in that space with limited budgets. So yeah, but have you done any kind of retargeting to those lists via Facebook, or any kind of success with that?
I have not. I have not tried it. Um, we do have plans to try that, and part of my social media content creation is geared towards that.
Okay.
So if you were to look at a lot of the content that I've been putting out on Instagram, a lot of them is actually targeting or speaking to that distressed owner,
Right.
that person that's in pre-foreclosure, that person that it's having the thinking about selling their home. And
Right.
I purposefully did that so I could then take that content and use it as my retargeting piece of content.
Got it.
I haven't gotten to that phase of the plan, but that is why a lot of my content is what my content is, which is funny because my audience per se is not that. I have more probably investors and those kind of people following me, where the content that I'm putting out, a lot of it is even basic sometimes for them. They're like, yeah, of course. That's how
Yeah.
you stop foreclosure or whatever, right? Because we do this stuff in and day out. But they're technically not my target audience.
Right.
They don't realize that I'm creating a catalog that I plan to then deploy towards retargeting ads or
Because you
whatever.
imagine people that are in foreclosure probably have an Instagram account, right? Or they
Yeah,
probably have a Facebook account. So targeting them there is not so far fetched. The only I mean, my mother has Facebook, right?
yeah,
My mother's in her 70s. Well, I hope she doesn't listen to the podcast, but she's in her 60s, and she has Facebook, right? She's a target audience on Facebook for somebody, right?
Right.
She's in a demographic that she may be looking to sell her home because she can no longer maintain it or afford it or anything. Hey, I know what everybody's out thinking out there. You guys are going to look up my former address. Don't. She's already knows what she's doing with the house. So stop mailing my mother, guys. Uh, the reason for my question, I initiated the question, is because I know that a lot of the a lot of new investors or new people want to grow this social media, but then they neglect the old school ways, right? The phone prospecting these deals, the marketing, the direct touch is the mailers, right? You got to think of the demographic that you're in. So not only touching them with just Facebook marketing or Instagram posts, but taking into account their age demographic and how they like to be communicated.
Yeah.
So, which is important in marketing, right?
Yeah. 100%. And you're completely right on that aspect, which is why I haven't really, my whole 10-year experience is online marketing.
Yeah.
And the main demographic that we go after tend to not be online.
So
So
that's why I asked the question, right? Because it was like,
yeah,
how are you putting that to work? And if a social media expert, in the digital field isn't digging in deep as its core business, it's because the basics still work, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so
100%.
so the basics are still there, and I think that that's a lesson in this conversation, is that for those starting into the business, they have to start implementing those basics, those lists, right? Those distressed properties, dialing for dollars or driving for dollars. That type of groundwork is really what gets you going. That gives you the ability to then reinvest into that SEO and that more complicated long-term marketing, right?
Yeah,
Brand
100%.
recognition and all of that.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, listen, I know that we're all when we speak high interest rates in the investment world, everybody's thinking in like double digits, anyways, right? So when everybody was getting 2%, investors were paying 8, right? So now with the high interest rate environment, or what everybody's considering a higher interest rate environment than what we came from, how is that changing your business now, Jimmy, with what you're seeing, working with sellers and things like that? What's the sentiment out there on your side of the street?
Um, so interesting because I mean, thus far in real estate, I have yet to do anything traditionally financed. So I could care less of what the interest rates are. If anything, it helps us. It makes the market
Wait, so
colder,
so you
a lot
said
less
so you
buyers, aka
said
a lot less
the
competition.
high interest rate environment actually helps you. That's what you said.
100%, 100%. Especially as a creative finance buyer. When I came into the industry, I came into the mentorship and the community of Sub 2 by Pace Morby.
Okay.
And so my mindset from day one has been creative finance if the opportunity presents itself. So like the last 3 to 4 deals have been subject twos that we're taking over 2, 3, 4% mortgages. So
Wow.
and they have less of a buyer pool for somebody that might be interested in buying the properties, which they don't, because a lot of them are underwater anyways. So they wouldn't be able to sell to a traditional buyer even if they wanted to. But
Wow.
even if they could, they probably still couldn't because nobody wants to buy right now. So
Interesting, Jimmy. So you're telling me that your last several deals, you've been able to take over payments on somebody else's property that could no longer afford it, right? And the option of a traditional real estate sale wasn't there for them because they weren't going to make any money on their transaction. Is that
not only will they not make money in the transaction, they will have to bring money to closing. For example, I'll give you one of the last few ones that I bought. It's a property in Orlando that I'm currently turning into a co-living place, aka rent by the room. Some people
Right.
call it pad split.
Yeah,
But
very popular. It's coming up.
right, but that property we bought subject to the ARV, what the property is worth in the market is, call it 300,000. Um, I think they owe 260 or 280.
Right.
So there's a little bit of equity, but they have $50,000 of solar panels.
Oh,
So
wow.
when you throw the $50,000 of solar panels, now it goes up to they owe 330, and the property is
Absolutely.
worth 300. So in the market, they wouldn't be able to sell it um, and make any money. They will have to bring technically not only 30,000, a lot more, because if you start counting commissions from the 30,000, they probably got to
Right.
bring 40 to 50 grand to closing to make that transaction even work. And that's one of those deals that we took over. I forget what the interest rate was, but I think it's 3.7 or something like that.
So essentially you're turning somebody's no deal into a deal because, from where I'm sitting, if this wasn't an option, this person would be looking at doing, what we call a short sale, and the short sale process, getting them, to agree to a reduced price, and we have to go through all of this. So and then they have that on their credit, as well as that they had to settle out for less. So that's not for everybody.
Right.
There are some deals that's the only option, but with what you're saying, there are certain benefits to the buyer as well, as I'm sorry, to the seller, as well as you just taking over the mortgage. Because they're not settling this mortgage out for less either, right?
No, they're not. We're just taking over whatever they owed, including the solar panels, and we're just continuing to make those payments for them. And not only do their credit bounces back eventually because we made the mortgage current, but they actually walked away with money. Not a lot of money, but
Right.
I forget how much we paid them. I think $2,500 or something like that. So they went from a scenario where they would have to bring 50,000 to the table to walking away with 2,500.
Right.
So yeah, when you go into creative finance, it could get very creative. I mean, we have another deal that we did in Daytona Beach, which is similar, where the numbers were similar, and the lady was underwater. She would have had to bring, I think, 20,000 to the closing table to be able to close. And the way that I structured it was, she actually made $10,000, but she's gonna get the
Wow.
$10,000 over time as payments. So I told her, hey, every time I pay your mortgage, I'm gonna send you a payment. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be the biggest payment in life. Maybe it covers your cell phone bill or something, but it's free money. Like, you're literally going from bankruptcy or short sale, my credit is trash, to my credit is great, and I made 10 grand, and I didn't have to bring 20 grand to the table. So very, very different scenarios, and that's why people do it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the benefit, right? And
Yeah.
of course, there's going to be 100 questions around this, and we could probably do 3 podcasts about just subject to. But it's a great tool, right? Like you said in the beginning of the podcast, right? It's my job as a marketer is to go out there, talk on deals for sellers, get deals under contract with sellers, then figure out what to do with it. Right now, you're presenting a third and fourth option that may not be available to everybody, right? And our audience really should think more like you, right? You're a marketer, right? And real estate agents aren't any different than investors in that way. Is we should be thinking about marketing, right? Because that's where our next deal comes from, right? How do we get our information into the hands of those who are looking to sell, just like you, right? You're
Mhm.
looking to put your phone number into their hands so they call you and see what your solution looks like, right? But you know, if as real estate agents, your solutions, if I'm only one solution and you got six, right? You're
Yeah.
you're gonna have a lot more tools in your toolbox. So learning from investors like yourself, keeps me sharpening my toolbox, man. So I appreciate you coming out here and sharing all that information with you. And I love following you on Instagram. Why don't you tell everybody where we could find you, man, and how we could get a hold of you?
Yeah, my handle is Becoming Jimmy on all social media platforms, but I'll be honest, I'm really only really on Instagram. I post on the other ones every now and then, but Instagram is my main one. I'm pretty active on Facebook as well, because there's a lot of communities and Facebook groups. So I'm on the
Right.
platform pretty actively, and I get messages all the time from all kinds of people. So I'm always connecting with people through Facebook. So those are my main two, Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. Great deal, great deal. And one thing that you would leave our audience with, man, to keep them, grinding and successful throughout the rest of the year. What's one nugget you could leave them with?
Um, you definitely gotta learn all your different tools. Like you gotta build your Batman belt, tool belt, of all the different strategies. Subject to is only one of them. Seller financing, doing wraps, doing novations, um, doing hotels. There's so many different strategies that we underwrite when we underwrite a property. There's literally our underwriting sheet has like 10 different columns of 10 different things that I can do in a deal. And I might be undershooting it. I think there's more than 10 columns in there. But wholesaling or just listing a property is literally like small piece of it. So I don't know what kind of people are listening. If it's an investor, learn all your tools. If you're an agent, still learn all your tools. If you're a seller, learn all your different options on how you can get rid of your property and make the most money possible. Sometimes making the most money doesn't mean selling it outright. Maybe you want to sell on a seller finance and get a higher interest rate and become the bank. And
Yeah.
when you buy a property for 300 grand, the bank doesn't make 300 grand. If you do the math, they actually make like 700,000 in 30
Yeah.
years. So there's a reason why they operate the way they do. So even as a seller, you can benefit from knowing all the different opportunities that you have and how you can get rid of your property.
Jimmy, well, that's awesome. I think we laid up our next episode for seller options, right? On how to present yourself to a larger client pool.
100%.
So,
There you
all
go.
right, Jimmy. Well, thanks a lot, man, for sharing your time with us, and it's been great. Peace, brother.
Peace.